Good morning, everyone. I'm Julie Livingston, back for another episode of PR Patter, my semi-weekly chat with the amazing people from across my public relations and marketing network. I'm so glad you're with me today. And if you like what you see, please go to my website at wantleverage.com and download Make Your C-Suite Stand Out on LinkedIn. It's got great tips and takeaways for building your profile and deepening engagement on the LinkedIn platform so you could raise your executive visibility. I am delighted today to have my guest, Jason Kramer. I'm going to bring him on. Hi, Jason.
Good morning, Julie. How are you?
Good. I'm great. Great that you're here. Jason founded Cultivise, a CRM consulting firm specializing in lead nurturing strategies and technology. And with 15 years of experience running a creative agency, which is what he did before, he identified revenue gaps in marketing and sales funnels for distributors, service providers, marketing agencies, and manufacturers. So he really has firsthand experience with this. And he launched Cultivise to provide customized CRM solutions and empower businesses to improve productivity, amplify lead conversions, and provide detailed insights on customer journeys from the top of the funnel to the sale. When he's not strategizing in CRM, he enjoys family time with his wife, two kids, and two dogs in their lively New York home. And when it's warm, cruising on the Hudson River. Boy, does that sound great right now.
Almost there. Another
I know. I'm
like
actually thinking
15.
of taking friends to the Statue of Liberty this weekend, and I'm looking forward to that ferry ride.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to live in Jersey City. So I used to go, there's a park right there. So I used to go over there with the kids when they were younger all the time. Yeah.
So, Jason, what is the best way to choose a CRM?
Well, it's the shiny object syndrome that a lot of people I find fall into. There are literally thousands of CRMs out there. And, a lot of them are sometimes specific to your business. So if you're a painting company or if you're, in home services, whatever you're in, there's generally different CRMs out there for specific industries. The challenge is that a lot of times companies, Julie, I apologize, will go and find something that looks good and it's got a lot of cool features, but it's not necessarily aligning with their pain points and what their needs are. And so they kind of jump into something before they kind of sit back. So my recommendation always to kind of get a pen and paper out, look at your business, find where there are areas of concern. A lot of things are simple things that you may overlook, like we work with a lot of manufacturers, a lot of companies that do quotes and follow-ups and send contracts out. Very few companies have a succinct process to follow up with those quotes. And you and I both know that a lot of
Oh,
times people will ultimately make a decision. Maybe it's 6 months, a year down the road, but a lot of salespeople just give up after one or two phone calls. They don't keep pressing and keep following up. And it's not that you're asking for the deal. You're just saying, hey, what's going on? Anything I can help
right.
with?
Keeping in touch, developing that relationship and rapport.
Exactly. So I think that's one of the big challenges for sure is they don't think about their needs. I think also a lot of times they look for the trap of signing up for a free demo. So for example, like HubSpot's a great platform. We work with HubSpot a lot. HubSpot's expensive. So you have a free version of HubSpot, which is only giving you like 10, 15% of what HubSpot can do. And you're like, okay, like I want to now use more features. And now it's like $1,500 or $2,500 a month and you can't afford it. And so what I would recommend is think about not only the budget for this year, but even for next year, because your team may grow and you may need more seats in the CRM or more features.
I love that.
So that's
Yeah.
really another important step. And there's a whole bunch of them. In fact, I have a guide on our website. We'll talk about it later, but afterthelead.com is a lot of great resources. One of them is the Ultimate CRM Research Guide. Now, this guide isn't specific about one CRM or another. What it is about the things we're talking about now and about 25 other things you need to think about. But the last one I'll give here is a little teaser, is to think about support. Over 80% of businesses fail when they try to adopt the CRM on their own because they don't understand the technology. They don't know how to connect that CRM to their strategy, to their way their business operates. It's trying to fit like, the old cliche saying of a square peg in a round hole. It just doesn't always work. And so you want to know what kind of support is going to be available. Generally speaking, and I'm comfortable saying this, the lower the cost of the tool, the worse the support is. Right. So,
Okay.
so just keep in mind that, if there isn't someone you could get on the phone with that's going to help you, and, it's not uncommon where you could email and wait weeks or months to hear back from some of these companies, that's a problem. And so you really want to know who's going to help you
Right.
get
So
the tool
check that
up and
out
running.
first.
Yeah, before you.
I've been so frustrated by that. I'm really glad you brought that up because I think that's one of the most important aspects of buying into a program is whether they can help you or not. Like when you need the help.
There's one yesterday. This is great, great quick story. We're talking to a company that does facility doors. So they basically like, warehouses, any place where there's the big, huge doors, that roll up and the automatic doors. And so they sell these doors and they repair the doors. And the tool they're using, they're not happy with. And they wanted to at least try to see if they can make it work. And they knew there was another piece of software out there that seemed like it could be feasible. And so they, we're asking this company they work with, saying, hey, can you integrate this tool? They're like, no, we really never heard of it. We don't know if we can do that. So they reach out to this other company and they're like, the company you already work with owns us. Like, it's the same company,
Oh,
and like their company that they have the software, like knew nothing about this piece of software, and how to even use it.
incredible.
So it's kind of shocking actually, like, how that happens so often.
Wow.
Yeah,
Amazing. All right. So after the lead.com is where you can get that resource, by the way.
absolutely. Yeah.
So the 6 tips on how to choose a CRM. So don't forget that. So lead nurturing, you know, we all often have moments where we fall off the bandwagon, right? Where we're
Mhm.
supposed to be following up with things and kind of taking it step by step to develop that relationship over time. Um, a lot of businesses focus on lead generation, but they don't necessarily properly nurture those leads. So tell us your tips for the lead nurturing blueprint that you created.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's also another download.
Good.
Lots, a lot of
Lots of great
great
resources.
resources. You beat me to it. So, lead nurturing, the concept for people that don't, I mean, it sounds obvious what it is, but a lot of times people think it's just sending out a bunch of emails to people, and that's not always the whole story. Lead nurturing is about understanding what is your sales cycle. Does it take you typically 3 months to sell something? 9 months, year and a half? That's really important because you have to understand how long it typically takes to onboard and, or not even onboard, but close, I should say, a new client. And then your lead nurturing is how do you stay in front of that person, not too aggressively, but enough to be in front of them throughout the entire sales process. A lot of times, salespeople, we were talking about even before the show started, a lot of salespeople give up right away. They can't close that deal in the first few weeks or the first month. They get busy, they start chasing the new stuff, and they forget about the other things they started building a relationship on. So lead nurturing is a combination of both email, and if you have a system capable of it, sometimes those emails are automated. Sometimes it's a little pop-up for the salesperson saying, hey, it's been 3 months, time to reach out to Jason. Here's 3 potential emails you can use. And then the salesperson is tweaking them and manually sending them out. A lot of times we work a lot with B2B, Julie. So it could be a prompt, connect with them on LinkedIn, maybe look and see what they're doing on LinkedIn, engage with them and their content. It could be a phone call, right? A lot of people are not making phone calls these days. They kind of, scared or whatever you want to call it, or the phone. But the phone is a really, I think, great vehicle.
It's
But you
it's a
have,
great way to cut through the clutter too. I find that people don't necessarily expect it
it is,
anymore.
depending upon your business. Like I have a lot of success, even though I'm B2B, with generating our clients with texting and text messaging. And it's not blasting, it's just chatting over text. Did you get my email last week? Like when is a good time to talk? And I find that sometimes these people are busy and texting them actually is better than email or phone. So you have to know what works for your organization and your who you're selling to. But the important thing of all of that, even if you have that all figured out, it's having a piece of software like a CRM that's capable to let you know who's raising their hand during the lead nurturing sequence. And so I'll give you a quick visual that I like to use. Imagine you're walking into a car dealership and it's a Saturday morning, it's 10 o'clock, and there's a few salespeople scattered around, and you're in there for like 25 minutes looking at cars, you're sitting in the car, and nobody comes over to you,
Ah,
right? Well, you're there for a reason, right? Either you're interested now to buy a car, maybe in the near future, but you're not there because you're bored and you have nothing to do on a Saturday morning. And so what we often see is that a lot of organizations do a monthly newsletter, do webinars, do all this content, put things on their website, but they don't have a way to track it. So integrated into your lead nurturing, you need to really have what we call lead scoring. And lead scoring allows you to pinpoint who are the people that are raising their hand, that are biting at the hook, if you will, but they haven't called you, they haven't emailed you. Those are the people that are more likely to have a conversation with you today or tomorrow than the people that have ignored everything you sent them.
that's great to know. And what happens if you have a CRM where you're not really getting much response at all to things that you're sending out?
So a CRM is a complex, ever-changing sort of thing, right? It's kind of like a website. Often you don't build a website and just leave it. You're kind of tweaking it, as you kind of go. But the point, to answer your question, would be that you have to first figure out, is your team using the tool? Are they actually in there every day? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? And that's different for every business. Is the CRM connected to your marketing activities, to your sales activities, right? Is it set up properly? Oftentimes it's not. So it's not that the tool can't do what you want it to do, right? To answer your question, it's not set up in the right way. And that's something we help evaluate, is determining. Sometimes it's not necessarily bringing in new software. It's just looking under the hood, figuring out what's going on. And if it can be fixed, we fix it. If it can't, then we find something, a better solution.
But it's also getting your salespeople on board, right? To use it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, adoption is one of the hardest things. Our sort of, and I don't call it secret sauce because I've said it 1,000 times, so it's no secret anymore. But is that we stay on board as a coach and accountability partner to all the clients we work with. So it's not just the sales manager who's responsible to make sure the sales team is doing what they should be doing. We have weekly, biweekly, at a minimum monthly meetings with sales teams and the marketing teams to make sure everybody's not only achieving the goals that we've set out and everything's working, but they're actually in there. They're using the tool, they're logging in. And we'll be the first to, pinpoint that and say, well, why haven't you logged in? Is there an issue? Like, is there a technical problem? Do you not understand something? And so we want to.
What's inconvenient about it, or what's not working for you?
Absolutely.
And sometimes that could also help identify talent that's just not a good fit.
It could.
For the organization.
And we work with organizations where they have, people that are at the, later stages of their career and they're just used to doing things a certain way. And so getting them to use some new technology sometimes isn't a quick, solution, right? It might take time. But what we often see is that if we get the people on the team, let's say a team of, 5 or 6 salespeople, you find the 2 or 3 that are really enthusiastic about the CRM, you get them using it for a few months. And then everybody else is like, hey, why is Fred and Mary getting all the leads and we're getting like nothing? And so, well, because they're using the CRM, and they're closing more business because of this tool. And now you have like internal champions that know it works. They could try to kind of like rah and get everybody else, on board.
That's great. So are there ways to master lead nurturing and CRM work?
Well, I would say that there are certainly things you can do to bring yourself to a point where you're more likely to succeed. One of the biggest mistakes I think companies make in general, just not even about what we're talking about, is that they put something into motion and they don't see how it's working. They just like kind of like let it run and
right, like sort of like the website that you develop, you put it up there and you kind of
put it up 5 years ago and you never went back to look at it, and there's like, it's not relevant anymore. You don't know how many times I reach out to people. So I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I start talking to them or on their website. And I'm like, oh, I was checking your website or your LinkedIn page, and this is what I saw. And they're like, oh, that's out of date. Like that's, I haven't done that in 2 years. I'm like, well, you might want to update that, if that's not what you're doing anymore. Anyway, so it's looking at it, but it's not looking at it at the end of the year, right? Like if you had an email sequence and, you were telling your sales team, hey, follow up every, 4.5 weeks or whatever it's going to be. every quarter at a minimum, you should be looking at the results, like what was the outcome? Like, this is how many emails were sent. This is what we got back. Another quick story. So we talked before about like the follow-up. Recently, actually last year over the summer, we brought on a couple of new clients in the home service space, which was a new sector for us to get into. So one was a pool construction company, one was a roofing company. The roofing company, and they both had the similar issues, but the roofing company specifically, they were organized, but they were using spreadsheets. They didn't have any type of CRM or any software to track everything. They were a team of 3 salespeople doing about 1,000 quotes a year. So you could imagine the follow-up was just really not possible because of the manpower they had. So after,
Right.
generally after about, 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, if the person didn't say, hey, let's go, like I'm ready to do my roof, they would sort of just move on to the next person. And I convinced the owner, Tom, I was like, Tom, listen, there's a lot of money being left on the table because someone may not have 15, 30 grand in their pocket to hire you today, but, taxes are, refunds are coming back, right? They're going to save money for it. So maybe in 6 months, a year, they will have the money. And if you made a good impression, you could potentially get that business. And so
Sure.
the short story is we put together a sequence of emails. I think they go out, if I recall, about every 6 weeks. Not the following up, literally message, but hey, we sent you a proposal a couple weeks ago. Do you have any questions, type of thing. At the end of last year, those follow-ups, and in a short span of maybe 3.5, 4 months, helped close over $800,000 in revenue for him.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
By
goodness.
saying, hey, have you made a decision yet? And he was shocked. He was like, he didn't think it was going to work. And I was like, listen, we've done this enough times. We know if it's the right message, if it's written the right way, it can make a big impact.
Wow. How do you suggest that small businesses build their CRM and their database?
Well, it's the first thing you have to think about is what type of information do you collect about the leads that you're going after and your customers. Obviously, you have your standard things, your name, your email, all that. But beyond that,
Yeah.
it's the services you sell, maybe the markets, the industries you're going into. The more things you could create to be systemized in the sense that when you're building a CRM, you really want to have as few what I call text box fields, right, as possible. Everything really should be a drop-down menu or a checkbox or something that you can create consistency, because you generally, if you're listening here, probably have a team, even if it's a small team. You're not the only one that's going to be adding data in. So you need to have a process where you could have consistent data, because without consistent data, there's very little you can do in terms of reporting, in terms of segmenting your lists, of doing your marketing, because everything becomes kind of just a jumbled, like white noise. And so that's usually where a lot of companies don't start, is thinking about what type of data do we need and how are we going to collect that data. Another way to think about that too, Julie, is on your website. A lot of times people on their website, like on a quote request or a contact us form, what do we see, right? We see name, email, company, tell us what you need, right? And maybe this drop down, what are you interested in? But there's no thing in there like, tell us about who you are. I'm the owner of my company. I'm the head of marketing. I'm the head of sales, right? Those forms are a great way for allowing that person to self-identify who they are. Are they a decision maker? Now, you don't have to say, are you the decision maker? There's other clever ways to do that, but you can use these forms to help start segmenting the information that's coming in. And I think that's a huge missed opportunity that a lot.
I love that. So you're really using the CRM to create a profile
Absolutely.
of what this person's needs are, what they do every day, and what their responsibilities are. That really is going to help you to deepen that relationship.
Yeah, and also to be more specific. For example, like if you know that you like to wish people a happy birthday, you want a reminder, well, there should be a field in your CRM, when is their birthday, right? Or what is their spouse's name? What is their children's name? What is their hobbies? Those are things that CRMs generally don't have as a default out of the box, but many CRMs, you can add in those areas to put that information. And that information shouldn't just go into a general note field, right? Because it's going to get lost. You need a specific place to put all those little pieces of information. Yeah.
Right. So I myself, in my long PR career, have actually done a lot of work in business development for companies, leveraging my, PR and marketing skills. And I have found that there's often a major disconnect between the sales team and the marketing team. And I wanted to get your insights on that, and how to deal with that kind of an issue.
So what I'd like to do, if I could, is just put a little visual out there for everybody that
That would be
to kind of
great.
address that, and I could go into more detail.
Go
All right.
right ahead.
So let me share my screen here quickly. Did it come across the screen share? Okay, great.
Yes, it did.
So just literally, like in the last couple of weeks, I've been thinking about how to sort of gamify, if you will, the understanding and bring a visual component to basically answering all the things we've just been talking about, including this last question. And so what we did here is we built this tool where companies in general, right, and these are sort of general stats that can go up or down a little bit depending upon your business, can see a 29% boost in sales and generate 50% more leads, and actually lower their cost by over 30% generally, because we know what's working when we're connecting in the sales and the marketing activity. And so let's play a little kind of like fun little experiment here. How about that? What would you say in your world to the people, and we'll use information you provide to kind of show how it can be very flexible. What would you say from the people you've worked with in the past, how much, Julie, they spend on marketing each month?
That is a great
Because
question. And I'm gonna say either like zero to, well,
Sure.
because sometimes
Of
there
course.
really is no
Right.
marketing going on until they
Yeah,
get to
right.
me. So they don't even know what they want to spend. I'm gonna say 0 to, 5,000 a
Okay.
month, let's
So how
say.
about we do like 3,500, right? Or let's say 3,000, all right?
Sure.
They're probably gonna be smaller, right? So we'll assume they have like one salesperson at that size. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think like these companies that you talk to are their average sale prices or contract price, would you say? And we can just throw a number out there. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate.
Say $15,000.
15,000. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And they probably are getting very few leads. So we could agree they probably get maybe like, 5 to 10 leads a month. Okay. So let's
Correct.
say 10 on the high side. So now we hit show my results. Now, based on these calculations of these percentages, right, that we just talked about, we know that on average, we can get clients 3 new customers a month, which is potentially 540K in additional revenue, so over $500,000. I would probably save them $7,200 on marketing, because they probably, even with that minimal spend, are spending money on things that aren't working, but they don't know it's not working. And so we can track all that, in a CRM. And so this is a cool tool like you saw here. You don't have to put your email in. It's a free tool. It's on afterthelead.com. So anybody that's seeing this could go in there and play around with it. But this is, I think, a good visual way to show the value of connecting in your sales activities to your marketing activities.
That's really clever. I love that. That's terrific. And I think, at a basic level, getting the sales team, facilitating meetings where the salespeople have to talk to the marketing people so that everybody's in sync is really important. I once did biz dev for a company where I got a number of sales leads for them, but then the marketing team wasn't able to follow up with a proposal for months at a time. I mean, how do you do business like that? They were used to doing business with government agencies, which move at a much slower pace. So we left a good amount of business on the table, just because it wasn't syncing up properly with what the client's needs
It happens.
were.
I mean, I think the other challenge too sometimes is where marketing doesn't talk to sales before they put together their, so they want to, a lot of times they're focused on the ideas, right, and the creativity of the marketing campaigns. But I think talking to sales before that starts, and to find out like what are the problems that you're hearing when you talk to people, how do our solutions uniquely, fit those problems and solve the issues. And so when marketing and sales work together to create the marketing campaigns, I've always seen you're going to get a lot, I'm sure you have too, a lot better results than if they were just working in a siloed vacuum.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. What are some of the what you call the leaks in the sales funnel. Aside from, in addition to, when marketing and sales, that they need to communicate
Yeah,
directly
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
honestly.
So the leaks are a few things. Generally, it's, before we talked about the no follow-up, right? So that's where the leak could happen, where no one's following up, or someone says, "Oh, call me back in 2 months. I'm just not ready yet," but there's no like reminder set, so the salesperson forgets to call back in 2 months, and then you just lose that deal to a competitor. It's very common. Or it says, "Call me back next year." How many people actually call back next year? They're like, "Yeah, that's just blowing you off." I
Forget
closed
it,
business
right?
that way. Like, you told me to call back in 6 months. I'm calling you back in 6 months. But guess
Yeah,
what? During that 6 month period, I've been nurturing you. I've been sending you articles. I've been sending you resources. I've been connecting with you on LinkedIn. I haven't asked for a meeting or a sale or anything. I've just been keeping the conversation going in a very casual, sort of non-salesy, very friendly way. And so when I call back in 6 months, I'm not a stranger. You still remember who I am. And you're like, "Oh yeah, like, let's, either let's talk, or I still need 6 more months." So that's another piece of like kind of things falling through the crack. But for sure, going back to the marketing, I think you find that a lot of companies that don't have bigger budgets, and even the ones that do, I mean, we have clients that have spent over 100 grand a year in marketing. And,
sure.
if you're not knowing how many leads you're getting and the quality of those leads and how much revenue you generated from each of those leads, how could you really know if the marketing is actually helping your business, or you're just burning money and getting nothing in return for it?
Yeah. Jason, I'm so glad you joined me today. This is really, you have such a bevy of information and great tips and resources. So if you want to get in touch with Jason, visit cultivise.com, but also take advantage of his tips and resources at afterthelead.com. And Jason, great to have you again. And everyone else, I'll see you next time.